everyone, welcome back to These Guys Got Next. I'm Elijah Fa'afiu. As always, I'm joined by my fellow basketball aficionado, Ravindu Pathirana. Ravi, today we're going to dissect the Eastern Conference and continue our breakdown of the upcoming NBA season. But just a quick check-in, mate. How is everything on your end?
Yeah, looking forward to this episode, Eli, especially after the bit of a shake-up last night in the East with the Timberwolves and the Knicks making their breaking trade. But yeah, definitely looking forward to it. How about you? How's things?
Yeah, I'm still trying to recover from that trade. That's such a the NBA is funny because it could be radio silence for so long, and then out of nowhere something just happens. That's sort of the NBA for you. But yeah, let's get straight into it. We'll actually start off with the Eastern Conference champions, or the NBA champions, really, the Boston Celtics. And really, there isn't much to discuss with these guys because they haven't made too many changes. They've pretty much kept the same roster from last season. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown leading the charge, Porzingis, Derek White, Drew Holiday, such a great squad that definitely deserved to win the chip last season. What do you make of the Celtics this upcoming season? Do you see any weak points with this squad?
I think the only weak points for them would be at the center position, with Horford's pushing the mid thirties, late thirties, and KP is unreliable with his health as he always has been. But again, it's if the KP can stay healthy, then I do see these guys going back to back in the center. And again, they like you said, they haven't made many moves, but why fix something that's broken, right? So just going to keep pushing on with what they have.
Yeah, I agree. I think I read Porzingis is actually going to miss part of the start of the season, so he might be out until December, which is quite actually a big loss for the Celtics when you think about it. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Celtics started off quite slow, especially with Horford coming in. Yes, he's a solid backup, but he's as you mentioned, he's getting up there in age, so it's quite a big void to fill there. For me, with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, the off season that they had with Tatum being on Team USA but barely getting any minutes.
Hmm.
Jaylen Brown wasn't even mentioned on Team USA. I thought he should have replaced Kawhi when Kawhi was ruled out. Instead, I think Derek White ended up getting that spot. If you're Tatum and Brown, who for years you're trying to earn the respect of NBA fans, you finally win the championship, and then you have this off season where it seems like the disrespect has been lifted even higher for some reason, despite the fact you've won a chip. How are you approaching this upcoming season if you're those guys?
I think I'll be coming with a personal vendetta against everyone just to prove them wrong. I think that's definitely the mindset that they've got to have, just to show people that they are worthy of that respect, because these guys are two very talented players and elite at what they do. And we saw what they were able to do last season, especially in the finals. So I have no shadow of a doubt that these guys will come out firing.
And just to finish off, the Celtics are going to be looking to be the first NBA repeat champions since the Golden State Warriors with that KD era, and we know how great that squad was. Moving on to one of the contenders, the New York Knicks. And when we were planning this, the big move that they had made was Mikal Bridges. Now they've made another big move in acquiring Karl Anthony Towns, trading away Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo to the Timberwolves. Let's just dissect Cat. Initial thoughts on him joining the squad in New York.
I think absolutely great fit. Definitely way better than what Julius Randle could have been. Because Julius Randle had to adapt his game because him being more of an ISO player and Cat being able to play more of that team game as we see in Minnesota. And especially with the Cat has an ability to play Mac as well, so that kind of fills in that ISO Hartenstein role in a way, or way better than what he was able to do, especially with the scoring output and what we know what how talented Cat is as a player, but fitting in alongside the likes of Brunson Hart and even Anunoby, as well as Mikal Bridges. I think that'll be a fantastic fit for the Knicks, and I'm definitely hoping they'll push the ECF and give the Knicks a good run for their money. But what do you make of the trade, Eli?
I think it's it definitely fills a void that they always needed at center, especially with Mitch Robinson, and we know how shaky he can be with his health. Jericho Sims and Precious Achua probably weren't the best backups to have, so Towns definitely fills that void. No one else on that team can really rebound as well, so I wouldn't be surprised if Towns averages an easy 20 and 10 or even a 25-10, to be
Mm.
honest. Like, and there'll probably be games where he has 20 and 20 even. Like that's how much I can see Towns eating up those boards this
Mm.
upcoming season. The other big acquisition was Mikal Bridges. What does he bring into the side at Madison Square Garden?
I think 3 and D, simple as that. He'll be in a diminished role compared to what he was at the Nets, where he was a number one option. But coming in here, he's now going to be the third option behind Cat and Brunson. Well, Brunson and Cat, respectively. And I think if he can bring what he did at the Phoenix Suns when he was there for that one season, or second year, sorry, in the Phoenix Suns, he cut 15% of the time on possessions and one of the league leaders in efficiency. So if he's able to translate a similar role and help Brunson and the rest of the Knicks elevate their status as a contender in the Eastern Conference, that'd be a fantastic case for them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I'm excited to see Bridges and Anunoby play together. They're probably two of the more elite 3 and D guys that we have in the NBA. So, and it would have been nice to see how they would have fit alongside DiVincenzo. Obviously, DiVincenzo's been shipped off, so unfortunately, we won't get that chance. Just on DiVincenzo leaving, are you a bit gutted in a way that the Nova Knicks won't really come to full fruition? I did see reports that Dante wasn't too happy, wasn't too thrilled about the idea of everyone reuniting, just because it could lead to a reduced role. But are you a bit gutted that we won't get to see those four guys play together?
Yeah, 100%. As much as I'd be gutted, I think you'd be more gutted than I will ever be around this because you're a big fan of these college teams coming back and reuniting in the bigger leagues. But yeah, absolutely understandable from DiVincenzo's side. He's a young player. He's got a lot of upside to him, and maybe he'll have more of a role in Minnesota. But yeah, I mean, honestly, Eli, I think it's more up to you to kind of speak to this because this is your kind of what you absolutely love to see when we spoke about this in the preseason.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a fan of when college teammates reunites in the pros. And when I heard that the four Villanova guys who won a national title together were going to be reuniting, I was thought, oh, this is going to be awesome for the Knicks. Yeah, I am a bit gutted, but I do see why the Knicks made the trade and made the move that they did. Just on the move, now that Towns has joined the squad, do you think it's enough to match up against the Celtics and topple them in the East?
I think so, especially with the addition of Bridges. I just solely adding Bridges wasn't enough, like to move the needle. But I think especially adding like that strong center position where Celtics seem to be one of their weaker positions. So I definitely say they'd be able to give them a good push. Maybe even go past the ECF and into the NBA finals.
Yeah, I agree to an extent. I think if we remember Minnesota's run in the West, the way Towns played against Jokic in the second round of the playoffs, he played awesome in how he defended Jokic. So hopefully he can do the same thing in the East against guys like Embiid. Obviously against the Celtics, where, as you mentioned, there's a weakness there at center. I guess my only concern with the Knicks is with this trade, the depth and the bench doesn't look too ideal. Like you've got guys like Miles McBride and Precious Achua now who are going to be leading your bench because I assume Josh Hart is going to be in the starting lineup. So that's my only concern. But yeah, an interesting move there from the New York Knicks.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see Josh Hart come off the bench as be that spark that he always has been. But yeah, it'd be really interesting to see who comes off because they do have a lot of options they can play around with OG Anunoby. Even I wouldn't say McCullough is definitely not off the bench, but they could go for like quite like as a bigger ball lineup, putting Cat at the five and figuring out the other pieces around him. But yeah, it'll be definitely interesting to see how they kind of play that shooting guard spot and see how they manipulate the roles and the starting lineup to see whichever one fits.
Going to one of the other contenders in the East now, the Philadelphia 76ers. And, well, we were analyzing the Clippers. I said I was dreading this analysis. I'm probably going to dread it now that we're going to talk about the other end of the big Paul George trade. Paul George joining Philly on a big max contract in free agency. What a big three that they've created now with PG, Embiid, and Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah, man, that's sensational. That's as in yeah, like you said, as a Clippers fan, it is a bit disappointing to see what happened, but I think for Philly, this is a great trade, and yeah, what a big three, especially with Maxi's rise to stardom last season. Set it up and fantastic, took them deep in the playoffs as well. I think this would be a great addition, and they should again be pushing for that ECF, and it's going to make the East more entertaining to watch.
Yeah, 100% agree. Yes, Paul George he's 34 now, so he is creeping up there in age, but he's still, you know, in his prime in a way. Like this is definitely the best situation for him if he's going to win a championship. Maxi had such a breakout year last season, the most improved player. So um, I'm excited to see how PG and Maxi play together. Just a quick one on Embiid. How do you think Embiid will fare this upcoming season? I know he's had his struggles with playoffs in the past and his health as well, but he also just came off a promising campaign with Team USA, and I think that semi final against Jokic, that was such a great performance from him. So you're hoping to see more of that form coming into the upcoming NBA season.
Yeah, definitely. I think adding someone like PG definitely opens up the floor for Embiid because we know PG is a great catch and shoot three option. I think he shot 45% on catch and shoot threes last season. Again, this opens up the floor in terms of Embiid decides to drive off pick and roll with Maxi. That opens up gets the defense thinking. It was like, oh, do we double, or leave PG open for those threes? So definitely will open up and will allow Embiid to either step up his scoring or even being able to dish out to another elite shooter on the wings. So I think definitely Embiid should take a better step up around his playmaking, maybe his assist numbers go up as well. So that's something to look out for.
And just to finish things off, obviously there's more than the big three in Philly, but they made some key veteran additions who I think that can definitely help out. Caleb Martin from the Heat, Andre Drummond, Eric Gordon, Reggie Jackson. So not a bad supporting cast to have around those three guys. Moving on now to the Milwaukee Bucks, and we know the Bucks are always going to be a contender with Giannis Antetokounmpo on the roster. They added Damian Lillard this last season. Probably not the best starting season for Dame to have in Milwaukee. He did struggle. I think I read that he was dealing with personal issues. I think he was going through a divorce, so that may have played a part in his form. But Dame in his second year, he's had a full off season with Doc Rivers as well as head coach. How do you think Dame is going to go in his second year in Milwaukee?
Yeah, I think he's going to have a way better year compared to what he had because of the like you mentioned the off court issues, right? So it'll, as anyone really, it just takes away from what you're trying to focus on. But I definitely have a lot of upside and a lot of belief that Dame can get back to a certain level, not the same elite level that what he was at Portland all those years ago, but still enough to contribute to the Milwaukee Bucks scouting being one of the 4 or 5 contenders in the league. But again, especially having a full off season with Doc Rivers, we know how great of a mind Doc Rivers has, being with the Celtics and also the Clippers in the past. Yeah, I think this will be really good for Dame. Like Dame still can shoot the three ball at an elite level. Or if let's say they're the 2 man game, if anyone steps up or doubles Giannis, there's options for Dame, and likewise goes the other way.
I'll push back slightly on Doc Rivers being a great mind because we know from his time as a Clippers coach that great mind seems to switch off in the playoffs for some reason. So, but I do agree Doc Rivers is a solid head coach to have for Giannis and Dame. I will add, I think a guy like Chris Middleton also needs to step up. The problem is the year that they won the chip, they had Middleton being a big contributor. Drew Holiday was there in that squad. Brooke Lopez was playing great. Bobby Portis as well. Middleton, Lopez, and Portis are all older now. Middleton is also coming off ankle surgery, so he's going to limp into the start of the season. So they definitely need more than Giannis and Dame to even be a contender and even keep their spot in the top four. Because I honestly don't know if they finish in the top four. Just a quick one. I mean, how do you see things with Milwaukee? Do they finish top four? Can you see them sliding down the season? What's your, I guess, quick assessment of that?
Top four, top four easily because especially with the spacing that Dame allows. I guess yes, Drew Holiday provided a lot on defense, but on the offensive side, just opens up Giannis like massively. So I think Giannis will be able to take a good step up, and top four for sure.
Well, it won't be easy for the Bucks. They've got a number of teams behind them. One of them being the Indiana Pacers, who did make the conference finals last season behind the great play of Tyrese Halliburton, and we know how offensively how great he can be. I guess my concerns with Indiana is more defensive. I don't think they have the defensive capabilities to compete with those teams, not only in the East but in the NBA as well. They were 24th in defensive rating last season, 27th in points allowed per game, 28th in defensive rebounds per game. So they were struggling to get boards as well. And I guess that turns my attention to Miles Turner and whether a guy like him has a future in Indiana. He was in the same draft class as Cat, and we just saw Cat get traded. So I guess it sort of ties in a way. But do you see someone like Miles Turner sticking around in Indiana for longer?
I think Miles Turner has been the cornerstone of Indiana Pacers for such a long time. And I think he should be one of the guys that stays in there. But again, allowing Pascal Siakam to have a full off season and full training camp and stuff, just to see how it complements each other's games, that'll definitely open up opportunities. Miles Turner doesn't have to do a lot offensively, but it's just more on the defensive end what he can bring. Like we remember through, I guess, 17, 18, 19, he was always in the top five and leading block shots across the league. So if you can bring that level back and then continue to be a defensive juggernaut, I don't see him being moved.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as long as Miles Turner isn't there, then there's going to be some sort of respect in terms of the defense. But obviously, they can't rely on Turner and Pascal Siakam, who's a great defender himself. There needs to be more contributors. I guess another guy I want to bring up is Benedict Mathurin, who he's shown flashes in his young career as a scorer. What do you think is the sort of the importance of having him in this Pacers squad this upcoming season?
Oh, I think it's very important. Like you said, yeah, great scorer, right? But the main thing that'll kind of set him apart from being a bench warmer to someone who's in the starting lineup was his defense. He is a defensive liability, and if he can bring that up to standard or bring it up to par to be a good enough starter, I think that'll massively help the Pacers overall.
Yeah, I agree. And Ben Mathurin, he had a disrupted season last year. He had a torn right labrum, which pretty much ended his season back in March. And I will add that they've got great. They do, unlike some of the teams in the East, they have great depth. I think they have one of the best bench units in the league, led by TJ McConnell. Who I think, if you're going to have a guy as your backup point guard, I'd love to have TJ McConnell in my squad. So I'll round it off there.
Yeah, oh, big shout out to Aaron Nemhard as well. He played great in the playoffs.
Yep, definitely. And another team who could be chasing top four contention is the Cleveland Cavaliers. Hopefully, it's a healthier core this time around with Spider and Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, and Jarrett Allen. I want to highlight Evan Mobley here because I think with new coach Kenny Atkinson coming into the fold, I think he was brought in specifically to help Evan Mobley and unlock his offensive potential because we know as a defender he's up there in the NBA. Offensively, he's got the potential, but he just needs a coach who can bring the best out of him. Can you see someone like Evan Mobley stepping up this season and helping Donovan Mitchell out?
Yeah, I think so. It's just more experience, and like you said, Kenny Atkinson has done it in the past as well. So definitely, if you can open up and see, and even Mobley himself can see what he's able to do on the offensive end and do it on a consistent basis. Yeah, that'll definitely make it easier for Donovan Mitchell to do his thing, which will definitely push the Cavaliers to the top four position.
Yeah, Evan Mobley averaged 16 points and 9.3 rebounds last season, so I can definitely see him being a guy who can get 20 and 10 in his peak years. The other guy I want to focus on in this core is Darius Garland. He was an all-star a couple of seasons ago. He battled injury last season. I think he had a broken jaw at some point that kept him out for a couple of months. But even when he did play, he did seem to look shaky. Are you hoping that Kenny Atkinson can unlock his potential or, I guess, bring back the all-star form in Darius Garland?
I think as hopeful as I want to be, and especially with their investing in their young core, potentially a move for them could be moving away from Darius Garland and getting a pure shooter, or even a pure playmaker, so Donovan Mitchell can do his thing, and be the star on that two guard spot. But yeah, I think maybe that is the option they take. Move away from Garland. What are your thoughts on that?
I think if they're going to keep Garland, he should step back and be the third option and allow Mobley to step up and be more of the scorer. I read when Kenny Atkinson was speaking to media that he noted that he wants Garland to shoot more threes, rather than him creating it through his own offense, he wants it to be through the system. So more catch and shoot threes, essentially coming off ball screens. There's some numbers in front of me that 2 years ago he attempted 4.2 catch and shoot three attempts, and he converted at 38%. Last season, he only attempted 1.6 catch and shoot threes and made 31%. So hopefully Kenny Atkinson can bring those numbers back up and deliver the All-Star form. And the Cavs also have guys like Karis LeVert and Max Strus on their roster, so they're hoping that those guys can contribute and help out this big four. Moving on now to the Orlando Magic, and I'm actually quite excited to see how this young roster is. They're probably one of the better young rosters that we've seen in the NBA over the past couple of seasons. Paolo Banchero emerged as a star. Franz Wagner is also there. Jalen Suggs, the energy he brings is amazing. But they made a really solid acquisition by getting Kentavious Caldwell-Pope during free agency. How impactful is this move of bringing KCP to Orlando?
Oh, that's massive. We know what he was able to do at the Nuggets in terms of 3-and-D presence and as a veteran as well. So he'll help this young core elevate themselves. And he's a lot of playoff experience and champion as well. But I think this is a massive win to help that this young Orlando Magic team take the next step. Very interesting to me. I mean, wouldn't say they're a small market team, but they flew under the radar and probably had one of the best series I've seen in a while against the Cavs last season, which didn't get a lot of airtime, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, looking forward to seeing them perform a lot better.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. KCP is a massive help. When we were dissecting the West, I said KCP was a big loss for Denver. This is a big game for Orlando. Orlando actually made the fewest 3-pointers last season, which, when you think about it, it kind of makes sense. Banchero is not really a 3-point shooter. Wagner's inconsistent from three, so adding KCP and his ability to shoot from deep will definitely help out this young core. In terms of Franz Wagner, we know Paolo Banchero is the 1A in this offense, in this team. When you look at the rest of the squad, you look at a guy like Wagner, is he someone who can take the next step and be the 1B to Banchero's 1A?
I think he should be able to take a step up, but not the next step, if that makes sense. So I think he's not there to break out. Yeah, T-Bot 19, 5 and 4 last season on 48% and 28% on three. But I think I've got more upside for Paolo to grow from what he did last season. But if we're having these guys grow in parallel, it'd be a little bit hard for Franz Wagner to take the step. Same step that Paolo does. I mean, if Paolo does take that next step, like take us a bigger leap, it should take, I guess, the spotlight off Franz Wagner's, and then allow him to score a little bit more because there'll be a little bit less pressure on him. But I think he should be able to step up, but he won't be able to take the next step as the Robin to Paolo's Batman.
Yeah, I think the way that Orlando has tried to construct their rosters is similar to Boston in that Boston have created their roster around Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, two really strong wing players, and they're looking to do the same in Orlando with Banchero and Wagner. I think Wagner's still a little bit behind Banchero. He's probably not on the same level as yet. I think he can make the jump, but he needs to make the jump anyway if the Magic are going to be a contender in the Eastern Conference. I just want to finish off mentioning, Wendell Carter Jr., Jonathan Isaac, other members of their key core who will be quite important in this upcoming season. And Jalen Suggs, we know he's the team's top defensive guard. He's such the energy he brings off the bench. Like, I feel like some of the highlights that we saw from the Magic was more about Jalen Suggs rather than Banchero because of that spark he brings. So I'm definitely excited to watch the Magic this upcoming season.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think just on Jalen Suggs as well, him being. Do you think they need a playmaker in that team?
Well, they probably need Jalen Suggs to be that playmaker. I think, as I mentioned, as great as he's been defensively, he hasn't shown that he can be the true point guard who can be a playmaker. I think Suggs has the capability to be that guy, but yeah, it's sort of a wait and see at this point. I do think he has the potential though to be that true point guard, and obviously Orlando have shown faith that they can do that with Suggs by not really adding anyone in the off season.
Yeah,
Now we look at the Miami Heat now. Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, the two key guys there with a solid supporting cast around them. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on Jimmy Butler. Rav, last year, doubt had injuries here and there. I think he also last season was probably the lowest he's averaged in terms of points, rebounds, assists, and over the past 4 years or so. Do you see this upcoming season as the year we sort of see the decline in Jimmy Butler, and we could see a changing of the guard from Jimmy to Bam?
yeah, I think so. I mean, he's what 35 years old now, and the body starts to break down the older you get, especially playing at these elite levels. Average, yeah, like you mentioned, 21, 5 and 5 last season on 50% and almost 41% from three. There's no question that he's an elite scorer, but again, just the ability to lead the team is there. But I think it is time to change the guard to give it to Bam, definitely. Yeah, I mean, he can. We know he's been able to lead teams before with the Bulls, with the Heat in 2020 as well, making that deep run in the finals. But I think, yeah, it is time. It is time for Jimmy to kind of be Robin.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think, especially with Bam, he's entering his prime now at 27. He's just come off an Olympic gold medal with Team USA, so he's going to have some confidence coming off the back of that campaign. Just in terms of the rest of the supporting cast, they added Terry Rozier. They traded for Terry like during last season, but they didn't get much out of him because he ended up injuring his neck. Guys like Tyler Hero, Nikola Jovic, Jaime Jaquez, Duncan Robinson, who's probably one of the better 3 point shooters in the league. Any of those guys, stick out to you? Someone who could help out the Heat this upcoming season?
I think Tyler Hero, that he definitely needs to take the next. Even Duncan Robinson, he had one amazing season and had nothing really compared to that since. But I think those two boys definitely need to step up. Yeah, I think simple as that. They haven't really put enough pieces around them together to be able to contend. But we know how the Heat play. We know they've gone from that ninth seed all the way to the ECF. We know they can make those deep playoff runs come the time. But again, one of the other additions, Alec Burke, who's a pure bucket getter. We know what he's been able to do in New York, and see, he's that type of like dog that fits in the Miami system. So even with like a piece as great as him, I don't think that is enough for them to contend.
I'll round out the Heat discussion by mentioning their first round pick, Kalal Ware, who was drafted 15th in the draft, averaged 18 points and 8.3 rebounds in the summer league, and it actually helped the Heat win the summer league. So he's definitely someone. He's got the size, which is probably what the Heat need. Someone alongside Bam Adebayo or to back him up at least. So I definitely keep an eye out for someone like Kalal Ware this upcoming season. Cool. We'll move on to teams who are probably contending or around about that play-in area, play-in tournament area. We'll start off with the Chicago Bulls and a lot of changes for the squad. Getting moving on from DeMar DeRozan and Alex Caruso, bringing in Josh Giddey. They still have Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic and the money that they're making on their roster. Actually, let's just start with those two, LaVine and Vucevic. Do you think the Bulls can trade these guys at all?
Maybe Vooch, but definitely not Zach LaVine, because I don't think there's anyone crazy in the NBA to take up that contract. I know we were discussing potentially the Clippers with how crazy Steve Ballmer is to pick up that contract, but I don't think it's realistic. So I think they just got to ride out this wave, unfortunately. Yeah, do you think maybe Vooch or Levine?
I think between the two, Vooch probably has the easier contract to move, but in terms of value as a player, you'd probably want Levine more as some if you need some scoring. But again, I don't know. Like you've talked about, I don't know which team is going to put their hand up and trade for the big bucks that those guys are earning. In terms of what they did bring into the team, Josh Giddey, that trade with the OKC Thunder, moving on or sending Caruso to the Thunder, bringing in Josh Giddey. They've also got Lonzo Ball, who hasn't played barely the last couple of seasons because of his injury. Do you see a point where Lonzo does end up playing, and if so, how will that affect Josh Giddey?
I'm very hopeful to see Lonzo back on the court because when he was one of the more elite point guards that the NBA has seen. I think Josh Giddey is your as a poor man's version of Lonzo. Great passer, does everything great, but Zoe has that ability to be a scorer as well. So I think, yeah, it'd be really hard to see if they go for a Zoe starting if he does play, and then Giddy comes off the bench and leads that second unit. But yeah, I don't really see. It's really hard to say with Lonzo because there's always flashes of hey he's back dunking again, and then a week later oh no he's back in a boot, or there's always that uncertainty and ambiguity lies within his health. So it'd be really hard to say.
Yeah, those comeback videos or those reports that come about Lonzo's comeback, I sort of take with a grain of salt. So I'm not personally, I'm not expecting Lonzo to suit up at all this season. It would be awesome if he did. He's actually one of my favorite players to watch. So as much as I'd love him to come back, I'm not as optimistic. I think in terms of Josh Giddey, we've we saw in OKC that he wasn't the best fit alongside Shea, and that young core there just didn't work out. And defensively, he was exposed, which is probably why they barely played him in the crunch minutes during their playoff run. I'm interested to see how Josh Giddey goes as possibly the primary ball handler. We've seen at the Olympics how he was as the primary guy for Australia, and I thought he played really well at the Olympics, and it was a bit gutted for them that they bowed out the quarterfinals. But I'm interested to see Goody alongside Kobe White, who I think is going to be one of the top guys on this team. He had a breakout season last year with 19 and 5 assists. Another guy I'm interested to watch is Matas Buzelis, who was their draft pick, and I saw some highlights of him during summer league, and I'm pretty excited to see what he can bring to the table. Any final thoughts from you around the Bulls this season? And I mean, do you see them even making the play in at all?
I don't think so, man. Like, being honest, I don't really see them making the play-in tournament. But again, really depends on how Josh Giddey fits in as a piece alongside Kobe White, and seeing how even Matas Buzelis performing. Like you said, great flash in the summer league, but just a matter if he can translate that into the NBA level, will really define this season.
The Atlanta Hawks now will talk about. There's no DeJounte Murray. They traded him off to the Pelicans. They've still got Trae Young there. I'm not really too sure what the Hawks are really doing in terms of what they're building around Trae, or whether they even want Trae as their franchise guy. I mean, how do you see things looking for Trae in particular this upcoming season? Do you feel like there's pressure on him to step up and carry the load?
I think with all the criticism Trey's faced over the last few years, definitely there is pressure, especially with the departure of Murray, which will have Trey bear more of that offensive load. But again, really interesting point that you mentioned is what are the Hawks doing? It seems like they're in a bit of a stalemate. It's a relatively young team. We got Clint Capella and Bogdan Bogdanovic, I think, are a couple of the most oldest players on this team. But again, really makes you question which direction are they heading. Will they focus on Zachary Rishire, or will they kind of still have their focus on Trae Young? But I think Trey averaged 26, 3, and 11 last season, and he should be able to lift that, maybe push average 30 a season, still being one of the top playmakers in the league. But yeah, I feel like the Hawks are in a bit of a stalemate.
Yeah, 30 is a lot to average. Like that's what Luca averaged just under what Luca averaged last season. So that's going to be a big ask for Trae this upcoming season. Yeah, I don't know what the Hawks are going to do. Like they can't tank because their first round picks have gone to the Spurs
Hmm.
for the next few years.
Yeah.
They do have the Lakers unprotected first round for next year. So they're probably going to have their fingers crossed that the Lakers sort of, crash and burn this upcoming season. But other than that, they don't really have much to do in terms of flexibility. One guy I'm looking forward to watching is Jalen Johnson, who I only bring him up because he was on my fantasy team last year and he got some mad points for me. So I was stoked about that. But he was stoked about that. So he was definitely a contender for most improved last year. But he's probably going to have to take another leap to be the second option behind Trey, which is a big ask for someone like him. Otherwise, you're looking at Bogdanovic to contribute all their first round pick, Zachary Versace. There's also DeAndre Hunter in that squad, who, if you're is probably someone I look at as a possible option at the trade deadline. If you're a contending team and you need some 3-and-D ability, then DeAndre Hunter's there. I don't think he's lived up to when he was picked fourth overall 5 or so years ago. So interested to see what the Hawks are going to look like this upcoming season.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they do have young pieces to move and see if they can get out of the stalemate that they're in.
Another team who probably aren't in a stalemate, they sort of know the direction that they're going in, but the Toronto Raptors, it seems like they're building around Scotty Barnes, and they've got RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly, who they received from the Knicks last season. Scotty Barnes, I mean, do you think he's capable of being the face in Toronto?
I think he might be that Kawhi type of operator in terms of like relatively quiet, but still able to show out with his performances. I know 28-6 last season, his best season yet. And again, adding like you mentioned, adding Emmanuel quickly and hoping RJ Barrett can take that next step. That should be able to allow Scotty Barnes to thrive more in his role and be able to contribute in more ways.
Yeah, I'm not as sold on Scotty Barnes as the face of the franchise. I think he's a great number two, but I mean, he could prove me wrong. I mean, I didn't see him having the year he had last year. I probably should have seen it because of all the guys that Toronto got rid of, and they moved on from Pascal and they moved on from OG Anunoby, and they basically changed up this whole franchise. So Scotty Barnes can definitely prove me wrong this upcoming season. Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett, thoughts on those guys and how much they can help out the Raptors this season?
Oh, I think they took a great punt on Emmanuel quickly and given him the contract that he got. He averaged 19, 5, and 7 in the 38 games that he played, which is fantastic. And the more off seasons, the more time they spend together in training camp, they'll help that team gel more and find out and to figure out each other's nuances and how they play along. One person we didn't really mention, Davion Mitchell. We know what his defensive capability is like and what he brought to the league when he was playing alongside Fox in Sacramento. So yeah, definitely high hopes for him as well to help this.
Yeah, hopefully a fresh start for Davion Mitchell. I remember when he was drafted, and I think he was MVP of the Summer League that year, and his lockdown defense was probably the key thing that about him as a player. Unfortunately, didn't pan out in Sacramento. I feel like part of it was because offensively he probably doesn't bring much to the table, but he's hoping that a fresh start can do wonders for Mr. Mitchell. Cool. Now we're entering our favorite tier, the capture the flag tier, and there's a team. This team, I'll move on to the Charlotte Hornets because I feel like this team's sort of on the verge of either capture the flag or competing in the play-in, especially when you got a playmaker like LaMelo Ball in that squad, and they had guys like Brandon Miller and Miles Bridges there to help him out. LaMelo, he's had troubles with injuries during his young career. Do you feel like he's sort of under pressure to, one, stay healthy, but also to elevate this Hornets side into the playoffs?
I think it's a matter of health. That's probably the biggest thing for him in terms of if he is able to stay healthy, then that additional pressure of hey, no, you're healthy, you've got to perform. He averaged 24, 5, and 8 in the 22 games that he played last season, and it's just keeping those ankles healthy. And as ball players ourselves, we know how bad those ankle injuries can get, especially over repeated successions. It'll be I think he has the tools to take that next step, and he definitely I wouldn't say he is under pressure because the Charlotte Hornets are where they're at, depending on where they're at the moment. But I think it'll be up to other guys like Brandon Miller with the Miles Bridges to elevate and put this team in a position to, I guess, yeah, make the play-in or potentially the playoffs in the upcoming seasons.
Yeah, just on his health, he's only played 58 out of a possible 164 games in the past 2 seasons, which is not ideal if you're a young player like LaMelo. And also, I think for him to take that next step, if he's going to take the next step, he needs to be much more efficient with the ball in hand. He had a 15% turnover rate last season, 15. Just in comparison, Jalen Brunson had 9.1%, Tyrese Halliburton 12.2. So LaMelo definitely needs to bring the turnover rate down. Guys like Brandon Miller and Miles Bridges and even Mark Williams as well. Do you think that's a solid enough supporting cast to help out LaMelo?
I think it is solid enough, but they probably need a year, maybe two, of experience under their belts. Not so Miles Bridges. Miles Bridges plays at that good enough level, but yeah, someone like Brandon Miller is coming off the rookie season has a lot of upside. Yeah, even with Mark Williams, he's a good big man, but he needs a bit of time to develop and make these guys push. And then yeah, with LaMelo leading the charge, I think definitely in a couple of years down the time, given healthy, they should be able to make the playoffs or and yeah, maybe deeper playoffs pushes. It'd be really good to see this young team go far.
Yeah, and just to finish off on Brandon Miller, he averaged 17.3 points as the primary option when LaMelo was sidelined. So hopefully, with LaMelo back into the fold, the two of them can uh, work together and hopefully elevate Charlotte this upcoming season. Now we're firmly into the capture the flag tier. We'll start things off with the Brooklyn Nets. Actually, we'll start with the Brooklyn Nets because, well, they traded away Mikal Bridges, who was probably their best player on that roster. They're left behind with guys like Cam Thomas, who's a great scorer, Nick Claxton, he's a solid rebounder, solid big, and Ben Simmons is still lurking around in Brooklyn as well. So I guess what do you make of this Brooklyn team this upcoming season, particularly a guy like Cam Thomas as a scorer?
Yeah, Cam Thomas was the first option. I think he's far too inconsistent. We know he's great scoring, but he's got a deep bag. But again, to be able to unlock this team, especially, he needs to improve his playmaking. Pick and roll, we've seen flashes of good signs, but there's a lot of, I guess, bad signs in terms of how he needs to improve his maturity and his ability to, yeah, play make to open up. Especially like re-signing Nick Claxton, they put their hopes on Nick Claxton as well. So we've just got to see how Cam Thomas goes, but I don't think he's consistent enough to be an elite player.
I think this is my lukewarm take of the day. I think Cam Thomas finishes top 10 in scoring this upcoming season. Only because who else on that team's going to score? Like Mikal Bridges was the second leading scorer on that team behind Cam Thomas. And now that he's gone, I mean, is Ben Simmons going to come back to All-Star form? I doubt it.
No,
If will Claxton step up and be a 15-8 guy? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, actually, just on Ben Simmons, by the way, still, as I mentioned, he's still hanging around in Brooklyn. Um, do you ever see a point where he's going to return to his All-Star form?
no. I think simple as that. Just no. Yeah,
Straight to the point.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'll talk about the Brooklyn Nets, but yeah, Cam Thomas. That's my warm take of the day. Top 10 in scoring this upcoming season. Moving on to the Detroit Pistons, who I guess out of the teams in the East who are in the capture the flag tier, they're the team who I can see improving quite a bit. Cade Cunningham, we know that he's on the verge of stardom. It's unfortunate he plays in Detroit though. That's the only downside. They brought in JB Bickerstaff from the Cavs as their new head coach. They drafted Ron Holland this offseason, and they added quite a few veterans in Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Tobias Harris is probably the big one as well. Do you think that's enough though to help out Cade this upcoming season?
From a veteran presence, yes, but in terms of playing, we know how inconsistent Tim Hardaway Jr. is. Like Tobias Harris hasn't had a great season in Philly as that third option. Yeah, I don't think that's enough. That's enough for them to make any waves, unless my hot take for the day. If Cade can have one of those AI seasons back in the 2001 season, put the team on his back and carry them through, then yeah, good on you. But I don't think there's enough pieces around him to be able to do that. Cade just needs to take a massive step from 23, 4, and 8 last season. That needs to push maybe the late 20s and maybe even get the assist numbers up to a 10 for them to be able to make it. But I think they should be all in on capture the flag.
I think the veteran additions will definitely improve the team, at least take them out of that laughing stock tier that they were in last season. Losing 28 games in a row is, I mean, that gets you into some sort of history there. But I think they pretty much added what they needed around Cade, which is shooting. There's barely any shooting in that squad before those veteran guys were added. Jalen Duren, he's a great big. He's got great promise as a big. He averaged 13.8 points and 11.6 rebounds last year. Asar Thompson was their rookie pick last year. Showed some promise at points, but he's basically useless outside of 12 feet. Like he's not a 3-point shooter at all. Ron Holland he has the length and the athleticism to help things out. He's a solid 3-point shooter. He shot 40% during the summer league, so I'm interested to see how things go. The other guy I want to point out is Jaden Ivey, who, when he was first drafted, I thought he could be a great fit alongside Cade Cunningham, but things haven't really panned out as well as he probably could have. Just on a guy like Jaden Ivey, what do you expect from him this season? And even Jalen Duren as well, a couple of key guys in their young core.
Yeah, I don't think Ivy can step up just based on just what we've seen in the past. It might just, especially with the shooting being added on, like THJ and Tobias, I don't think he takes a step up. But one guy I do really like and really hope to see a big jump would be Jalen Duren. He averaged 14 and 11.6 rebounds last season, and for that next step, maybe he goes up to a 15-15 guy, and take that big step up. Especially, I think with the additions around the other pieces that might help him. But again, it's really going to be interesting to see where they go. What are your thoughts for Ivy and Duran?
I think I'm hoping that with the new head coach and JB Bickerstaff that he can help unlock Jaden Ivey. I think I read that Monty Williams, their last coach, didn't get on too well with Ivey, and there was sort of chemistry issues there. Bickerstaff has shown during his time with the Cavs that he can work with a young roster and develop talent like Darius Garland and Evan Mobley when he was in Cleveland. So he's hoping he can do the same thing with Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren in Detroit. So yeah, interesting to see. We'll see what happens with Detroit this upcoming season, but all I can say is I doubt they'll lose 28 straight again.
Maybe 20.
19, I reckon. Below, sub 20. We'll finish things off with the Washington Wizards, who I think out of all the teams, well, I guess out of all the teams playing capture the flag, they're probably the ones who are closest to the flag, I would say. I have no idea what this team was doing in the offseason. They added Jonas Valanciunas in the offseason, Sadiq Bey, Malcolm Brogdon. They drafted Alex South, the second overall pick. And then they lost Denny Avdia, which if you're going to try and rebuild your squad, you probably want to keep Denny rather than ship him off to another team that's also trying to rebuild in Portland. Just in terms of Washington, what do you make of what they did in the offseason? Because I can't really comprehend it.
Yeah, I don't know. The only thing I can kind of think of, they were acquiring assets to put them in a position to win Cooper Flag. Like we definitely know that someone like Valanciunas will get traded at the trade deadline, possibly Malcolm Brogdon as well, or even if they all in, then they move a key piece like Kyle Kuzma as well, who's been in the season, been in their team for a few years now, and has been a cornerstone. Yeah, but like you said, I don't know what they're trying to do in terms of it. Will they even push 20 wins this season? Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see which draft pick they end up taking. I guess that's the only thing we can really talk about.
Yeah, I assume the only reason that guys like Valanciunas and Brogdon, well, Brogdon was traded, so he didn't have a choice. But also, I think Valanciunas was free agency or trade, or he ended up in Washington anyway. But I assume the reason, well, at least this gives them an opportunity to build their value up ahead of the trade deadline, and they could probably stick their hand out and ask contending teams to trade for them.
Mm.
But it's going to take a lot if you're going to stand out in Washington. Um, in terms of the young core, I guess the only reason I'm semi-excited to watch the Wizards is Alex Sarr.
Mm.
They also drafted Bub Carrington with their 14th overall pick, who in the summer league he averaged nearly 16 points, nearly 7.5 rebounds, and just over 5 assists. So he could be someone who's a dark horse for a rookie of the year. Like we talk about guys like Reed Shepherd and Zach Edey. Definitely keep an eye out on a guy like Bub Carrington and Alex Sarr as well. Hopefully Alex Sarr doesn't shoot 0 from 15 like he did in the summer league. There was some historic this stuff there. And there's also Bilal Koulibaly,
Yeah.
who was their draft pick last year. So I think the Wizards, if you're a Wizards fan, I know we have a mate who's a Wizards fan. You'll definitely want to be excited about those three young players there. Any final thoughts on the Wizards? Actually, I'll finish things off. Do you think the Wizards will have the worst record this season?
I think if
Quick
they
yes or
move
no.
like the likes of Valanciunas and Brogdon, then by the trade deadline, I don't have a lot of hope for the second half of the season for them. So I think, yeah, probably have the worst record this season.
Yeah, I reckon if they reach 15 wins, then I guess that's success in Washington. I'm not really too sure, but yeah, good luck to them this
Yeah.
upcoming season. Awesome, and that pretty much wraps up our preview of the Eastern Conference. As always, big thank you to you, Ravi, for being here as always. Next time, we're going to start making our predictions for the upcoming season, and we'll start off with the individual awards. Who do we have taking our MVP? Who's our bet for Rookie of the Year? And who will make the season's All-Star teams and All-NBA's teams. So until then, we got next, and Matiwa.
Cheers, like.